So without further ado, please join me in welcoming the 50th Lieutenant Governor of the state of California, the first elected woman Lieutenant Governor of the state of California, Kounalakis.
Thank you so much, Sunil. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here this morning. It is a great pleasure to be with all of you here today at the Bay Area Council's 2019 Pacific Summit. My friend, Jim Wunderman, thank you so much for inviting me to be here with this really illustrious group of speakers and distinguished participants. As Sunil mentioned, I am the first woman ever elected Lieutenant Governor of California. I'm very proud of that. And I'm also very proud that Governor Newsom asked me to serve as his representative for international affairs and trade development. The governor will be here today, and you will have an opportunity to hear directly from him about his commitment to international affairs and foreign trade. Meanwhile, I'd like to start by saying a few words about the California economy. I have put together some facts and figures that I think show that in our state, we have a great deal to be proud of and a great deal at stake if we are not careful about policies affecting us. Everyone is now well aware that California is the 5th largest economy in the world, if we were a country. We are also #1 in the United States in manufacturing output. Our state controls 11.4% of the nation's manufacturing. By contrast, Texas controls about 10%. California also leads the nation on spending on research and development, particularly in advanced technologies. We are first in foreign direct investment coming into our state, about $42 billion in 2017, and we are #1 in access to capital for our businesses. We are also first in agriculture. California produces almost all of the United States almonds, apricots, dates, figs, kiwi fruit, nectarines, olives, pistachios, prunes, and walnuts. And we lead in the production of avocados, grapes, lemons, melons, peaches, plums, and strawberries. Delivering all of these great products to the market also spurs our economy. In fact, California's economy is bolstered by over $600 billion worth of foreign trade every year. And international trade and foreign investment account for 5.4 million jobs in the state of California, about 1 in every 5 jobs in our state. By volume, 30% of U.S. exports and 40% of imports come through California ports. And every day, $1 billion worth of goods flow through the port of Los Angeles and Long Beach alone, the largest port complex in the country. Now, if all of this makes you feel proud, it should. But as we know, California has been caught in the crosshairs of escalating tariff disputes between the United States and key trading partners, including China, Mexico, Canada, and India. Given the big numbers that I just laid out, unpredictability and erratic trade policies clearly threaten California jobs and our overall economy. What's more, rural areas of our state are disproportionately affected, as rural industries like agriculture and logistics have significant exposure to import and retaliatory tariffs. Take, for example, our world-renowned wine production. California wine exports to China fell nearly 25% in 2018 after import taxes and tariffs on wine entering China reached 80%. Meanwhile, wine exports to China from Chile and Australia surged, creating changes in supply chains that will be difficult to restore. Now, we are all aware that the power to regulate trade rests with the federal government, but California must continue to work and develop relationships and programs to promote trade and investment with our partners worldwide. And we will continue to assert ourselves in the global conversation over trade, which is essential to the livelihood of millions of Californians. Next, I'd like to talk about climate change. Through the leadership of both Democratic and Republican governors, California is now well established as a global leader in addressing the existential threat of climate change. Faced with the U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord, I believe our voice on this issue is more critical than perhaps on any other. And faced with the realities of historic wildfires, our commitment to act has never been more consequential. Mario Molina, a Nobel Prize-winning scientist from Mexico who advises nations on climate change, recently told the New York Times, "The global community is looking to California as one of the world's largest economies to take the lead." We have, and we will continue to do so. Part of our story is that no other state or country better exemplifies the ability to achieve greenhouse gas reduction goals while strengthening the economy and creating jobs. Since the year 2000, California's economy has grown by 46%, and our population has grown by 16%, all while greenhouse gas emissions have been reduced by 10%. Yeah, let's hear it. Our investment in alternative energy, statutory mandates to reduce carbon emissions, and innovation around carbon capture established California as a standard bearer in the world. California is committed to our goal of achieving carbon neutrality by 2045. This target can and will continue to create incredible opportunities for innovators in the clean power space. And we will continue to forge partnerships with other subnational and national governments to combat climate change and promote green technologies. Earlier this year, I represented California in 2 forums at the Belt and Road Conference in Beijing. I went specifically to highlight the robust relationship between China and California around combating climate change and the important role China must play in helping lead the world on this issue. But whether it's China or India or Sweden and France, California stands ready to partner with other committed nations around the world to address the existential threat of our warming planet. Finally, I'd like to say a few words about education. And it's not just because Janet Napolitano is sitting in the front row. Janet. One of the best parts of my job as Lieutenant Governor is serving as a member of both the UC Regents and the CSU trustees. Between the UC, the CSU, and the California Community College system, we currently have about 3 million students enrolled in public higher education in the state of California. It's incredible. Cultural, intellectual, and educational exchanges are a recognized hallmark of healthy international relations. But I'd like to share another fact about our investment in public higher education. It is a unique and powerful driver of upward socioeconomic mobility in our state, particularly for immigrants and first-generation American students. Recently, the news program 60 Minutes profiled 300 Princeton University students who were the first in their family to go to college through the financial support of the Gates Foundation. This is great, of course. But the president of Cal State Fullerton tweeted at 60 Minutes that his university also graduated some first-gen students this year. 6,500 of them. And this happens every year with similar numbers at all 23 CSU campuses. And as the world seeks solutions to its most pressing issues, climate change, transportation, cybersecurity, we in California will continue to position our students, our workforce of the future, to take advantage of all opportunities to leverage their ingenuity and creativity for the benefit of the state and the world. I'd like to close with one more thing that I am very proud of as a Californian, and that is the diversity of the people in our state. Some of you might be surprised to know that 27% of Californians are foreign-born. 27%. Here in California, we know that immigration is our strength and that our success is directly related to it. Our diversity makes us better as a democracy, as a center for innovation, and as the world's 5th largest economy. As the daughter of a Greek immigrant who started out as a Central Valley farm worker, this is personal for me, as it is for so many of us Californians. So, again, I'm delighted to be here today and I look forward to our discussion. Thank you.
If you could expand a little bit on a few of the items that you said. Obviously, I'm not breaking news by saying the tone in Washington is more protectionist as it speaks to trade in terms of how that's impacting how you are having your discussions and influencing your ideas for Governor Newsom.
Well, Sunil, look, I think it's appropriate that you start with this issue because there's just no question that this tariffs dispute, this way that Washington is engaging in the conversation around trade and around tariffs, has been enormously disruptive. We had a hearing in Sacramento, I think about 2 weeks ago, where leaders from industry and from companies that are affected came and testified and talked about it. And I know you all are watching this, but we started with 10% tariffs on, I think, $32 billion worth of goods that were being imported from China. We're now up to 25% tariffs on the import of goods coming from China to a total of around $200 billion worth of goods. And the Trump administration is now looking at an additional $300 billion worth of goods, basically everything that the Trump administration may put tariffs on those as well. And then, of course, there have been retaliatory tariffs. So in retaliation, China has also put tariffs on our exports. I was down at the port of Long Beach in Los Angeles a few weeks ago. Here in the port of Oakland, they're saying the same thing. Exports of our agricultural products are down in the double digits, and supply chains change. So if you have loyal customers for your products that you're exporting, and suddenly they can't gain access to them, or they can, but at a much higher price, companies start looking around for alternatives. So we have a real challenge. And what we also know, frankly, is that the people who are paying the price aren't just the companies who are now struggling with their exports and seeing a pretty significant reduction, but also California and American families, because just the China tariffs alone are resulting in over $400 per family in an increase, projected increase in the cost of goods here at home. And we didn't even talk about this back and forth over the last, 10 days over the possibility of tariffs on Mexico that were not related to trade, but were related to immigration issues, a completely separate foreign policy issue. We don't talk about it because it sort of came and went, and now we have other things to worry about. In particular, we're seeing tariffs on goods from India. So all of this is very disruptive, and I know that Wells Fargo, and again, so many people in this room, when you look at any country and consider investing, you look at predictability, and you look at stability, in the trade regime, and so and the investment regime. And so the fact that we have this ground moving under the feet of our businesses, even if ultimately, like with the tariffs proposed with Mexico, they didn't happen, people get nervous and they start pulling back and they start preparing for the possibility that it might happen. This is self-harm. This is unnecessary. So I'm very concerned about it, and I'm sure you are for starting the conversation with this. And, people are watching, and we up in Sacramento are watching as well.
Thank you. So with the clear difference of opinion with federal trade policy with what you were attempting to accomplish here in California, how would you describe the relationship with the federal government and how you manage that?
Well, I mean, look, it's this kind of great conundrum for the state of California. We are a massive economy, 40 million people, the 5th largest economy in the world. But I certainly am a very proud American, and every once in a while people will say to me, well, maybe we should be our own country. And I remind them that if they say the Pledge of Allegiance, they are pledging allegiance to one country, and not to forget that. But the fact of the matter is that many of the issues that affect our economy the most are determined in Washington, not in Sacramento, whether it's the trade regime, whether it's immigration laws, whether it's our tax regime. The elimination of the SALT deduction was damaging to the California economy, damaging to Californians, and we really had very little say. But I think that the most important thing for us to do here in our state is to raise our voices, to help recognize that anything that Washington does that is harmful for the California economy is ultimately harmful for the U.S. economy, right?
Thank you. So as you're meeting with foreign leaders, how would you characterize their view of California as a place to invest?
Well, the numbers speak for themselves. California is first in the country for foreign direct investment. So, that really says a lot. It says a lot about all of you here in this room. It says a lot about this extraordinary place that is the Bay Area, and of course also Los Angeles as well. And I think that the way that people see California is in some ways the way that historically they see America, right? The place of opportunity, the place of diversity, the place where, if Visit California, which has a very robust presence around the world in promoting tourism to California, their slogan is "All Dreams Welcome." And Carolyn Bettetta, who runs Visit California, said she didn't invent this slogan and then go try to convince people. She was just channeling the way that people around the world really feel about our state. So there's a lot of very positive feelings from foreign leaders toward our state. Again, I talked a little bit about what we're doing in climate and how recognized and appreciated that is in the world. And frankly, I think that we do a pretty good job at living up to the perception that is out there.
Thank you for that. And Governor Newsom has pledged to increase economic opportunities throughout the state. With already a leadership position in trade, how does the trade-related economy fit into helping him meet that pledge?
So I think there's just a lot that's happening around international trade. Certainly, our ports are a very important piece of this, and keeping our ports healthy is very important. My favorite trade statistic that I use when I'm out speaking to groups is this one, and I want to quickly share it. The Port of Hueneme in Southern California brings through its doors every year 3.3 billion bananas. Think about that. 10 bananas for every man, woman, and child in the United States of America. And they come through our port right here in California. And so everything that goes along with that, the distribution, the logistics, the transportation, this creates jobs. So keeping our ports functioning and healthy and able to continue to do what they do best, because it's competitive out there. There are options. There are other options for bringing those bananas into the United States. So that's very important. And frankly, the SB1 money for transportation improvements, $4.5 billion every year now going to improve our roads and our freeways. That's very important as well. And frankly, you know, Janet will appreciate it, but I always talk about education, because the degree to which we continue to invest in education in our state is critically important. Having an educated, prepared, and trained workforce, in my view, is probably the most important thing that we can do to continue to develop international trade and grow our economy in the state.
Wonderful, and we have time for one more. Governor Newsom has also stated that he wants California to play a bigger role on the world stage. So could you expand a little bit on some of the plans associated with that?
Well, again, he's going to be here soon, and it's great that he's going to be talking about these things. But we're, it's an exciting time to be working on this in Sacramento. He has grown the number of people who we're going to have in the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, which is under the leadership of Lenny Mendonça, whom many of you know, a great leader from here in the Bay Area. We will have a lot of work that we're doing right now around our relationship with Mexico, our presence in Mexico, our presence in China. We've been doing quite a bit of research around how best to engage. We've already been, of course, talking to Jim and to the folks at Bay Area Council because we have a presence in China already in coordination with you. As most of you know, Bay Area Council has 4 trade offices in China, and one of them is the flagship location representing the state of California. We're looking at that model, we're looking at other models, and also along the way that what we've realized is that even though we once had many trade offices of the state of California around the world, and we no longer have those for a variety of reasons, the fact is that regionally and from some of the trade groups, and of course tourism, we've filled the gap that way. So we've counted up dozens and dozens. The number is 60, but a couple of those we're actually looking at, but we think it's somewhere between 40 and 60 different offices. The city of Sacramento, for instance, has a trade office. And we're going to be talking, I know, a lot today about India. The Almond Board has a trade office in India. Los Angeles has tourism offices in the world. So what we're really looking at here isn't to necessarily reinvent that, but rather to see how we can network, whether it's the Almond Board or the Milk Board or Bay Area Council or the City of Los Angeles or San Diego. How do we kind of network all of this together so that we can do more with the resources that we already have and ensure that the state is very much available and accessible to participate in the success of these offices and, of course, roll out the red carpet here at home.
Well, thank you very much for your commentary and the optimism. You clearly have the support of the Bay Area business community, and it's been an absolute pleasure hearing your thoughts on these important topics.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you.